Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Magnificent Marriage Show. I am recording my live streams now because I really kind of like the process, but also because I'm still locked out by Facebook from doing live streaming. It's been a saga. I think I've got till the end of the month, and I can get back on schedule with doing the live stream. So I had planned on doing this on August the 16th. Today is the 19th. It's been one of those kind of weeks, and I could not do my show, but I'm going to get it out to you so you can watch it over the weekend. This is the third in what was originally intended for a two-part series, but there was so much content that I wanted to share with you that I could not limit it to two shows. So today we're going to look at the idea and what I think is the fact that a happy, healthy, holy marriage starts with you. And so what we're going to look at today is the third in a series of pieces of research conducted by Samantha Joel at Western University in London, Ontario. And we talked about pursuing holiness, and again, that's going to be a constant in our discussions about what it means to have a great marriage from a Christian perspective and what a kingdom marriage looks like. We've talked about life satisfaction, absence of depression, absence of negative affect last week. Today, we're going to be looking at anxious and avoidant attachment styles. And in order to understand those, we're going to look at what is typically the third, and that is secure attachment as well. So we're going to dive into this, and it's amazing how you'll see this in relationships. So the first thing we're going to look at is what is an attachment style. And I want to tell you, first of all, what this means. Marriage satisfaction and commitment are lower. In other words, they go down. Satisfaction and commitment go down when the person is more anxiously attached or avoidantly attached. So as anxious and avoidant attachment go up, marital satisfaction and commitment go down. So in order to understand what anxious and avoidant attachment are, and actually what we're shooting for instead of anxious or avoidant attachment, we're going to talk about secure attachment to start off with. So let me change screens here a little bit and look at what is an attachment style. There are several ways to describe it. In fact, there's lots of different ways that we might define attachment style and the way that it has been defined in the psychological literature. So one is an individual sense of safety and security and trust in relationships. And so when someone feels unsafe or they don't feel secure in their relationship, or they start to question the trust of their partner, then their attachment style is going to be evident, how they respond to that lack of safety, security, and trust. And it serves as a blueprint for the way we relate to others, right? And so what ends up happening is we learn these ways of attaching early in our life. In fact, this theory was originally proposed as a way of infants attaching to their primary caregivers, primarily their mothers. What they found is that the same type of attachment styles are present in adults. Now, just because a person has a insecure attachment style, an avoidant or anxious attachment style as an infant, doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to grow up into that same attachment style, but it is a pretty high likelihood. And so our attachment style is exposed when we get close to someone and we begin to depend on them. So when we start to develop that sense of safety, that security, that trust, and when safety, security, and trust are threatened, that's when our attachment style really begins to show itself. So let's look at 10 skills of the securely attached. I'm not going to define this because actually I am defining. I'm just defining it in behavioral terms. So let me show you 10 skills of the securely attached. One, they're able to recognize by and large when their partner is not being open and honest. And so when their partner's not being open and honest, they may not be able to put their finger on it, but something just doesn't feel right. Something is off. And I don't mean someone who's paranoid. I don't mean someone who is just kind of suspicious. But when someone is acting squirrely, the other person picks up on it. A securely attached person picks up on that. They're able to recognize the emotional upsets of others. Like if a person is shut down or they're being over the top, something like that, something is going on. What they're able to recognize when a person is avoiding conversations or when the person is very anxious. So they're able to recognize other people's attachment styles. They're also able to stay focused on the current topic in a conflict. They don't go back 6 months. They don't go back a year. They don't bring up multiple topics that may be bothering them. They stick to one topic. They're able to appreciate the good in their partner rather than complaining all the time. They're very much able to appreciate and demonstrate that appreciation for their partner. They're able to help their partner self-soothe. My partner self-soothe, I said there. So when someone gets upset, they're able to say, okay, let's take a break, let's calm down, and let's re-engage in this conversation when we are better able to have that kind of conversation. So a few more skills. They're able to set and respect relationship boundaries. If someone says, no, I don't want you to do this, they're able to say no. And so, for instance, if a wife is uncomfortable with their husband's relationship with another female or vice versa, and that wife says, no, I'm not comfortable with that, the husband will say, okay, I understand. I don't necessarily agree. There's nothing going on, all that. But out of respect for our marriage and to build you up and to make you feel safe, secure, and trusting, I'm going to put a limit on that relationship. That's what secure people do in relationships. They're able to communicate feelings, needs, and desires. And this is, again, maybe early in life or early in a relationship, they're not able to do that. But over time, they can develop that skill, and they do it effectively once they know what to do. They're able to collaborate and achieve relationship goals. It's not all my way or the highway. Let's figure out what we both want and need in any given situation and move forward together. They're able to de-escalate when emotionally flooded. Whenever somebody's getting upset, they're able to calm themselves down. They realize that the relationship is more important than giving full vent to their anger, for instance, so they can calm themselves. And again, they express appreciation for their partner. So what is, in contrast, anxious attachment? What does that look like? In the early on, they can be incredibly generous and attentive. Why? Because they're anxious, and what they want to do is feel safe, secure, and trusting and trusted in the relationship. So they're going to be very generous with their time, affection, and everything else. So it's awesome early on in their relationship, but they do tend to be hypersensitive to perceived abandonment. So if the other person doesn't give them all the attention that they want and that they think that they need, then they are very likely going to be very anxious in the relationship. They share their feelings very easily, but they tend to blame others for the way they feel. If someone does something they don't like and they have a negative emotional reaction to it, they say, you made me feel this way. And the truth is that no one else can make us feel anyway. Other people do things, we interpret that through our attachment style, our other lenses, our other filters that we have, and then we respond with our emotions. So we don't no one else can make us feel any particular way. We interpret events in our lives, and that makes us feel certain ways. They sometimes make threats and give ultimatums. I want a divorce. You don't care about my feelings. You're a bad person. They can be very critical when they are threatened. So if they're not feeling secure, they're not feeling safe, they're not trusting the other person, they can give ultimatums, and it does become a challenge in some relationships. So what if you're in a relationship with someone who has an anxious attachment style? Well, here are some of the things that you might be thinking or feeling. Well, first of all, you never have to guess how they're feeling because they're going to be telling you. They're going to be telling you all the time, especially if they're unhappy. So if they're displeased, if they're feeling unsafe, if they're feeling insecure, if they're not trusting you, believe me, you are going to know it. They often come across as angry or critical, again, because if they're upset, if they're insecure, unsafe, or not trusting, they're going to let you know. And so you may feel criticized all the time. you may feel that you're being treated unfairly or abused for that same reason, and you may not be, but you could be. And so typically, if you're in a relationship with someone with an anxious attachment style, you're going to respond by working really hard to make them happy, or you're going to just check out. You're going to avoid, or you're going to end the relationship, especially if you recognize this pattern early on. You may not be able to articulate why, but if they're just overbearing, is something that you might say, then you're going to want to get out of that relationship, just escape from it. And in dating, we recognize that, but in marriage, we can get the same way. So, what is avoidant attachment? These folks are very self-reliant and independent. They rarely complain, but they can be kind of underhanded. They're going to let you know that they're unhappy in some way or the other. They're not going to share very much. This whole thing about dating someone who's tall, dark, and handsome, right? Well, it could be that tall, dark, and handsome person that is kind of aloof is we're operating out of an avoidant attachment style. They're not going to engage in a lot of self-disclosure. They're going to be kind of mysterious, right? But they'll talk about anything else. They just won't talk about themselves. They'll talk about sports. They'll talk about their hobbies. They'll talk about trips. They'll talk about a lot of things, but they're not going to engage in self-disclosure. They're not going to tell you about themselves. So they're going to be kind of mysterious. They may ignore conflict altogether. Like, well, yeah, we don't have a problem. Everything's great. Everything is wonderful. They're going to deny conflict. Oh, I don't even. Or they may. I think I put this in here somewhere else. They're just going to deny that it happened and just forget. They're going to be like, oh, we had a conflict. Yeah, I don't remember us having that conversation, and just kind of block it out of their mind. That's an avoidance strategy. Maybe an one that operates outside of their awareness, but it's an unhealthy one. They can also develop unhealthy coping mechanisms like drugs, alcohol, infidelity, or cheating in a relationship, things like that. They do prefer logic over feelings because the feelings make them uncomfortable. The actual dealing with feelings makes them feel unsafe, insecure, and can lead to lack of feelings of trust for them. They have little or zero tolerance for a demanding romantic partner. If you are someone who's securely attached and you're placing reasonable demands on someone with an avoidant attachment style, they're probably going to pull away. And again, a secure attachment style is what we want. In relationships, we do place demands on one another. We call them expectations. Like, if we're in a relationship, you're going to be faithful to that relationship, right? For a person with an extreme avoidant attachment style, they're going to find that unreasonable and uncomfortable. That will make them feel unsafe and insecure. So even if you have a very healthy way of relating and you're in a relationship with someone with an avoidant attachment style, they're going to perceive that to be threatening in some ways. So, what does it feel like to be in a relationship with someone with an avoidant attachment style? They're not going to deal with problems. So if you are a securely attached person, you have that kind of attachment style, it may be very frustrating for you. And I'll tell you that if you are operating out of an anxious attachment style and you really want to talk things out and you're in a relationship with an avoidant attachment style, you're going to be very frustrating. We'll talk about that a little bit in just a little bit. They're hesitant to commit to a relationship, and I'm not sure what I was doing with the spelling there. That happens. I'll have to. They're hesitant to commit. Did the relationship? It should be to the relationship. And so, because they're avoidant, they're a little hesitant to really commit themselves to someone because they understand the expectations, intellectually at least. They just don't want to involve that. Themselves in. They resist discussing their feelings. That's very intimidating for them. They're going to distance themselves. They're going to physically leave the room. They might get very upset. They might explode emotionally. Anything that they can do to avoid having to deal with the feelings, especially vulnerable feelings. and they're going to do things without telling you, and it's very frustrating for people with secure attachments or anxious attachments when they just haul off and do something. They'll spend some money, they'll go somewhere, they'll have a conversation with someone, and then they just don't tell you. That's not to say that if your partner doesn't tell you things, sometimes it could just slip their minds that they have an avoidant attachment style. But if it's a pattern, if it's consistent, then that's an avoidant behavior. So before we talk about how you deal with this and how this all works together, I want to tell you about my 8-week Magnificent Marriage Mentoring Program. Here's what you're going to get from this program. So you're going to learn how to recover from conflict, and actually I'm going to teach you how to avoid conflict, and not in the avoidant sense of it, but the things that you can do so that you can manage conflict in a healthy way before it gets out of control. And then I'm going to teach you how to recover when you do have conflict. The difference between healthy couples and unhealthy couples is not that healthy couples don't have conflict. They do. They just know how to resolve it and recover quickly. After conflict or when trust is broken, I'm going to help you learn how to restore trust. So many couples that I talk to, so many couples that I read about, trust gets broken in little ways, in like micro trust breakages. And sometimes it's big things like infidelity. I'm going to teach you how to restore trust. I'm going to help you learn how to rebuild your friendship. Sometimes there's a thing called emotional drift over years. You've been married 5, 6, 7, 10, 20, 30 years, and you just don't know each other anymore. You have the empty nest suddenly, and then you're sitting across the breakfast table from someone, and you go, who are you? And you don't know. And you don't want to get divorced, but you don't want to have this distance in your relationship either. So I will help you learn how to rebuild your friendship. And then I'm going to help you to reestablish hopes and dreams. So many couples get to a place where they just don't see a future together. They don't want to get divorced. They don't want to be separated. They don't want to start all over in the dating scene. They want to have a happy, healthy, and holy marriage, but they don't know how to get there. And so I help you get there. And then I help you reignite passion. So many couples feel the disconnect in their relationship in the bedroom. And I can help you reestablish your connection so that it shows up in every area of your life, including your sex life. And so the 8-week program is not for everyone. So I want you to know whether or not you're a good fit. Is there active abuse? If yes, this is not the right program for you. You need to find the resources in your local community and get into a safe place. So if there's active abuse, then this is not the right place for you. Is there an active affair? Not to say that there's not been an affair in the past, but if you are in the middle of an affair and you're not willing to give that up, then there's no point in doing any kind of marital counseling, marital coaching, marriage mentoring, because you are actively in the process of tearing down your marriage. There's no way that you can actually build up your marriage. So if you're having an affair, it's not the right place. Are both you and your spouse interested in being mentored? And I don't mean just willing to participate in the process, but are you willing to be humble enough to learn and to engage in the self-examination process and to modify your behavior so that you can have a happy, healthy, holy marriage? And then will you commit the $1,000 that the program costs and 2 months to improve your marriage? It's a really a small price to pay for the value that you're getting and for the lifetime value that you are going to receive from this program. And so the program consists of 8 one-on-one sessions with me. I will meet with you as a couple, and we will go through what it will take for you to move forward in your marriage. DM me if you want to schedule a consultation. I'd be more than happy to talk with you and your spouse about how you can develop a magnificent marriage. A marriage that's a thing of beauty, a marriage that honors God and returns marriage to exactly what God had in mind at the beginning when He created Adam and Eve. So if you would like to participate in the program, I'd love to talk with you about it. So let's jump back into the attachment styles in relationships. What does it look like? So let's say that you have two people who are anxious in a relationship. They're often very passionate in the beginning. There's lots of sharing going on. There's deep conversations deep into the night. and they're both very much trying to ingratiate themselves with one another. They're very much trying to get to know one another at a deep level, and that fosters a sense of safety and security and trust between them. In this kind of relationship with two people who have anxious attachment styles, the both partners' greatest fear is being abandoned by the other person. So they're going to do everything within their power to make sure that they are not being abandoned and that they're on top of their relationships. Here's the thing, that because both partners' greatest fear is being abandoned, when you have two people who are very hypersensitive to being abandoned, it can be a very difficult relationship. And so it's very hard. It's great in the beginning, but the more demands that they place on one another, the more anxious they get, because if they perceive even the slightest, smallest hint that the relationship is threatened, then they're going to bail on the relationship. But what about an avoidant? Well, there's going to be very little conflict in the beginning and throughout the relationship. And they may never have a conflict. You may have had friends who were married and they say, oh, well, we never fight. Well, I doubt it, first of all. But secondly, if they never fight, if they never have any differences, or they never have any conflict, then they're probably avoidant in attachment styles. Over time, what happens though is they start moving toward an avoidant, anxious type of relationship, because over time, we're going to have greater expectations for the person that we're married to or that we're in a relationship with. And so what's going to happen is there's going to be an increase in conflict and a decrease in marital satisfaction or relationship satisfaction and commitment. It's just the way the relationships go. We start to have greater expectations for the people that we're in a relationship with. What about anxious avoidance? Sometimes it's called the distance and pursuer dynamic. Both may be prone to fear of relationship abandonment. However, they have different ways of resolving their sense of insecurity and sense lack of safety. So the anxious person wants to resolve it quickly and completely. So they're going to want to have a conversation long into the night. The avoidant person either avoids or offers a superficial solution just to get out of the conversation. So what you've got is someone who wants to deal with the issue, immediately get it all resolved so that everything is good, and then the avoidant person just like, I don't want to get out of here. I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to have this conversation. And some of you are in that kind of relationship. And what you both have to do, both the anxious person and the avoidant person, has to learn new behaviors and manage the anxiety that you have so that you can develop a solid relationship. Having a relationship between an anxious and an avoidant attachment style people is possible, but it's going to take working toward a more secure attachment and engaging in the behaviors that we discussed earlier. So, what do you do now? So, do you recognize that any of the avoidant or anxious attachment traits in yourself or in your partner? So, that's one question to ask yourself. Do you see any of the secure attachment traits in your relationship? If you do, rejoice over those. And if you're entered yes to any of those, and go back and look at those characteristics of avoidant and anxious attachment people, and you will be able to see what you need to be working toward specifically. Now, what you need to do if you find yourself in the avoidant or anxious attachment area is commit yourself to learning how to adopt secure attachment skills. These are skills that you can learn and you can apply them to your marriage. But you have to be aware of what the pattern is, how you enact that pattern in your marriage, in your relationship, and then choose to do something different. So that's why I provided those 10 skills for securely attached people, gave you a description of what anxious attachment looks like, what avoidant attachment looks like, so that you can see that you have this pattern and that you can have something else to go toward. Now, if you struggle, I want you to know that there is hope. If you do not have a naturally secure attachment, there is hope. Again, securely attached people just have a natural tendency to engage in those relationship behaviors that are helpful. But the good news is, for those of you who see yourself as anxious or avoidant in attachment style, you can learn these behaviors. You can learn these skills. It is very much a skill-based intervention, if you will, from a psychological or coaching standpoint, you can learn the skills. So don't give up hope. You can change. What you want in relationships, that security and that safety and to be able to trust your partner, is possible. But what you've got to do and what your partner needs to do is recognize those behaviors, those patterns of behavior that are not helpful, and then to begin to change your behavior, and make sure that you're engaging in those types of behaviors, appreciating one another and having good types of disagreements and settling your disagreements in a mutually beneficial way, and so on and so forth. Those 10 skills I listed earlier. And you can have a good relationship that stands the test of time, that's happy and healthy and holy. So there is hope. So if you're not sure what steps to take, again, I have an 8-week program that I can help you learn what those patterns are and how you can engage in the behaviors that you need to and gain the knowledge and the skills that you need to in order to have a great marriage, a magnificent marriage. So now we finished this 3-part series. We're going to start a new series the next time, and we're going to focus on not the individual traits that you bring, but what are the characteristics of marriages where there's high levels of satisfaction and commitment. So what are the things that contribute to happy, healthy, and holy marriages? So I want to tell you something as we end up today, that there is hope for your marriage. There is hope for your marriage. It's a great day today to begin looking at the things that you can actually do to improve your marriage. You can do this. With God's help, you can call on God. You can engage in the behaviors that you need to engage in that will allow you to have the marriage that you dreamed of, that you dream of even today. So my hope and my prayer is that we will go from here and that we will pursue our magnificent marriages. I look forward to talking with you next week. If I can do anything in between, please send me a DM. God bless you, and I'll talk to you soon.